After our family reunion, my $18,000 savings vanished. My sister laughed. It was family money. That night, agents knocked on our door. I never expected my life to split in two on such an ordinary night. It was after the Parker family reunion, the kind of gathering where the house smelled like roasted chicken and laughter was supposed to feel warm, not sharp. Everyone hugged a little too long, clinked their glasses too loudly, and told stories they had told 100 times before. Stop. Not until I stopped them. And so, for the first time, I decided I wouldn't be silent. If they thought I'd just swallow this like every other time, they were wrong. This time, I was going to gather proof. This time, I would make them see what they had done. When the call ended, I sat in the dark with my phone still in my hand, my heart hammering like I had just run a mile. For years, I had swallowed my anger and told myself it was family. But now the truth sat in front of me in black and white. Almost $19,000 gone, and no one thought twice about it. I realized something, then arguing with them was pointless. They'd spin it, twist it, make me the villain for daring to question them. Words wouldn't change anything. If I wanted justice, I needed evidence. Cold, undeniable proof. So I began. Every night after work, I opened my laptop and traced the numbers like a detective following footprints in the snow. I combed through my bank statements, cross-checked transfers, dug into dates and times. With every click, the picture grew clearer and uglier. There it was, Rachel's Sephora haul, nearly $1,200 in a single day. A charge at a luxury furniture store for $2,800, hundreds strained at restaurants, bars, endless takeout orders. And then the kicker, $3,400 wired directly to cover Mark's motorcycle loan. Survival, they had called it. Me, it looked more like indulgence. I color-coded everything, building a spreadsheet that told the story they refused to admit. Green for bills, red for luxuries, yellow for cash withdrawals. By the time I was done, the page looked like a battlefield, bleeding red everywhere. At work, I was a ghost of myself. I'd sit in meetings nodding at the right times while my mind ran through numbers, calculations, patterns. Once, I nearly lost a client because I caught myself staring at my phone in the middle of their presentation, refreshing my account again, like a man checking for a pulse. I brushed it off with a smile, but inside I was unraveling. Still, the deeper I dug, the stronger I felt. Every receipt, every withdrawal, every digital footprint was a weapon I could finally use. For once, I wasn't just the bank they drew from. I was the one holding the ledger. And late one night, as I printed the last page and stacked the evidence neatly in a folder, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry, yes, hurt, beyond measure. But more than that, I was ready. They thought I would never push back. They thought I'd keep paying, keep smiling, keep pretending. But now I had proof they couldn't laugh off, couldn't guilt away. So when my mother called the following week, inviting me to a calm family dinner, I knew exactly what I was walking into. They wanted to pacify me, to smooth things over, to make me swallow the bitterness one more time. But this time, I wouldn't be arriving empty. I'd be carrying a stack of paper that told the truth they had tried so hard to bury. When my mother called and said, "Come home, let's talk this out as a family," her voice carried that tone she always used when she wanted me calm, pliable, quiet. A part of me almost didn't go, but another part knew this was the moment I had been waiting for. If they wanted a dinner, they were going to get one, and this time, I wouldn't be showing up empty-handed. The night of the dinner, the house felt staged, like a performance they had rehearsed without me. The table was set too neatly, the candles lit, the food steaming in its serving bowls. Mom clinked plates, louder than necessary, avoiding my eyes. Dad lounged in his chair with the TV remote on the armrest, flicking through channels even as he muttered about family unity. Rachel stood by the window, arms crossed, lips pressed thin, already ready for a fight. Mark slouched at the far end of the table with his usual grin, one leg bouncing lazily like he was waiting for the opening kickoff of a football game. I walked in with my folder tucked under my arm. No hugs this time, no small talk, just silence heavy enough to choke. "Unwell," Rachel said finally, her voice dry. "Look who decided to show up. Let's just get this over with," I muttered, taking my seat. Mark chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Maybe now we can stop pretending you were robbed." My hands tightened on the folder. I was robbed. The room stilled for a second, like no one wanted to be the first to move. Then Mom cleared her throat, forcing a smile. "Ethan, honey, we know you're upset, but you have to understand we were struggling. Rachel and Mark were drowning. We didn't have other options." Dad chimed in without looking at me. "You've always been the stable one. We knew we could count on you." "You didn't ask," I said, my voice flat. "You took." Rachel rolled her eyes. "God, you're being dramatic again. We didn't waste it on junk. We used it where it mattered." That was my cue. Slowly, I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. I spread the papers across the table like playing cards, one by one, each with its own story. "Not junk?" I asked, tapping the pages. $1,200 at Sephora, $800 in takeout, $2,800 for furniture, and $3,400 for Mark's motorcycle loan. Mark's grin faltered. His face darkened. You went through our accounts. Oh, I did more than that, I said. Sliding the spreadsheet forward, I built a breakdown of every transaction, every withdrawal, every lie you wrapped in the word survival. Rachel's face flushed. You're insane. This is creepy. You stalked us. No, I snapped. I uncovered the truth you thought I'd never dare to look for. For the first time, they were silent. No mocking, no laughter. Just shifting eyes and tight jaws. Then Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. You're tearing this family apart over numbers, over money. I leaned forward, my voice sharp as glass. No, you tore this family apart when you decided my savings were yours to plunder. When you laughed while I bled. The silence that followed was suffocating. My heart pounded so loudly I could almost hear it in the silverware. And then, finally, Rachel broke. She scoffed, tossing her hair like none of this mattered. So what, Ethan? You think you're going to scare us with papers? You wouldn't dare take this further. You've always been too soft. I stared at her for a long moment, and then I smiled, small and cold. That's where you're wrong, because I already did. Her smirk faltered. What do you mean? I slid the final sheet across the tabula copy of the fraud report I had filed. I've already spoken to the bank. I've already filed with the authorities. This isn't just family business anymore, it's criminal. The words hung in the air like smoke. Mark's chair scraped against the floor as he shot to his feet. You called the cops? Mom gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Ethan, please, tell me you didn't. Dad's voice was a roar. You'd put your own sister in jail. I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. I didn't put her there. She put herself there. The room erupted, Rachel shrieking, Mark cursing, Mom crying, Dad shouting, but beneath it all was something I hadn't felt in years. Power, for once. I wasn't the one shrinking under their voices. I was the one holding the truth, and they couldn't silence it. And as their chaos swelled, a sound cut through the house. 3 heavy knocks at the front door. Rachel froze. Mark's face drained of color. Mom whispered no. I stood slowly, gathering my folder. That'll be the financial crimes unit. The 3 knocks echoed through the house like thunder, cutting straight through the shouting. For a moment, no one moved. Rachel's face drained of color. Mark froze halfway out of his chair. My mother's knitting slipped from her lap to the floor. Don't answer it, Dad barked, his voice shaking in a way I'd never heard before. But it was too late. We all knew who it was. I walked to the door slowly, every step deliberate, as if I were wading through years of silence and swallowed rage. When I turned the knob and pulled it open, the cold night air rushed in and so did the agents, 3 of them, jackets marked in bold letters, Financial Crimes Unit. The lead agent looked me straight in the eye. Ethan Parker. Yes. My voice didn't waver. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll take it from here. Behind me, the living room erupted. Mom gasped, stumbling back against the table. Rachel collapsed into her chair like her legs had given out, muttering, "This isn't real. This can't be real." Mark puffed his chest out, trying to look tough, but his hands shook as he clenched them into fists. Rachel Parker. Mark Daniels, the agent continued. You are persons of interest in an ongoing investigation into financial fraud and identity theft. Identity theft, Mom cried. He's your son. How could that be theft? The agent's tone was calm, almost clinical. Family ties don't make illegal activity legal, ma'am. Rachel's head snapped up, tears brimming. We didn't steal anything. We had a right. He's always helped us. He knew he always knew. Thinking you're entitled to someone else's money doesn't make it yours, another agent said evenly. The silence that followed was heavier than the knock itself. My father finally stood, his face red, his voice shaking with fury. Ethan, stop this. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. You can't put your own family in jail. I turned to him, meeting his eyes for the first time that night. I didn't put them there. They did. Every withdrawal, every lie, every laugh at my expense. That was them, not me. Mom covered her mouth and sobbed. Rachel tried to speak, but only choked on her own words. Mark looked ready to bolt for the back door until the third agent's stare pinned him in place. For the first time in years, no one talked over me. No one mocked me, no one brushed me aside. They all looked at me, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. I slung my bag over my shoulder and turned to the lead agent. I'll be outside. He nodded. You're free to go, Mr. Parker. We'll handle the rest. As I stepped out into the cold, the night air felt sharper, cleaner, as if I were breathing for the first time. Behind me, the muffled sounds of chaos continued. My mother's crying, Rachel's protests, the agent's firm voices, but none of it reached me anymore. For once, I wasn't their wallet, their backup plan, their scapegoat. I was free, and yet, freedom is never clean. Because as I walked down the porch steps, I knew the fallout had only just begun. The night of the knock was only the beginning. The real storm came afterward, and it didn't stay inside that house. It spilled into every corner of my life. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages. The first was from Dad. What happened to loyalty? You've humiliated this family. We raised you better than this. No mention of the money, no mention of the years. They bled me dry. Just shame. wrapped like a lesson. A voicemail from Mom followed, her voice raw and breaking. Ethan's sweetheart, you didn't have to do it this way. We could have handled it like a family. They're threatening charges. They said we might lose the house, please. Don't let this happen. For years, I would have caved at those words. The guilt would have sunk its claws into me. But this time, I sat in silence, listening without replying. Because the truth was clear. They weren't asking for forgiveness. They were asking for silence. Again. Rachel, of course, was the loudest. Text after text, calls, I refused to answer. You ruined everything. They froze our accounts. Mark's under investigation at work. This is your fault. She painted herself as the victim, as if draining my savings was some innocent mistake I should have brushed aside. But the part that cut deepest came a few days later. Mark's cousin, someone I barely knew, sent me a short warning. Just so you know, Rachel's telling people you approved the transfers. Says you gave her permission, and now you're turning on her. There's a lawyer involved. Watch your back. Even now, even staring down charges, she was trying to twist the story, to smear me as the accomplice. It was almost laughable if it didn't make me sick. Inside that family, blame became currency. Rachel blamed Mark for pushing her. Mark blamed Rachel for lying about what I agreed to. Mom blamed me for not staying quiet. Dad blamed outside influence for poisoning me against them. No one looked in the mirror. No one said the words I had ached to hear. We were wrong. At night, I imagined the scene inside their house. Mark pacing, swearing under his breath. Rachel crying, not from guilt, but from fear of losing her comforts. Mom clutching her rosary, whispering that God would fix what she called a misunderstanding. Dad stewing in silence, too proud to admit his empire of control had finally cracked. And through it all, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not vengeance, just exhaustion. Years of carrying their weight had left scars deeper than I realized. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew the worst wasn't over. The investigation was moving forward, lawyers circling, whispers spreading through relatives and neighbors. My name was being dragged through the mud in living rooms I'd never stepped into. And yet, I felt lighter, because this time, I wasn't hiding. For once, the collapse wasn't mine to shoulder. It was theirs. And as they're carefully constructed, lies began to crumble. I understood something vital. Families like mine don't break all at once. They unravel thread by thread, blame by blame, until nothing is left but the mess they swore would never happen. And in that unraveling, something unexpected found its way to me. A voice I hadn't heard in years. Not from Rachel, not from my parents. From someone else entirely. In the middle of all the noise, angry calls, guilt-soaked voicemails, and Rachel's endless texts, something unexpected arrived. A short email, buried between bank alerts and lawyer updates. At first, I almost ignored it. The sender's name barely registered until I opened it. Lydia Daniels. Mark's sister. We hadn't spoken in years. At family gatherings, she was the quiet one, sitting at the edge of the table, watching more than she spoke. I never thought she noticed me at all. But her message was simple, and it stopped me cold. I know we haven't talked, Ethan, but I just wanted to say you were right. About all of it. About how they treat you, about how toxic it's gotten. I used to think you were cold, now I think you were brave. Attached was a photo of a check for $900. Underneath, a single line. This is for everything you covered for my niece when no one else even said thank you. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words blurring as something heavy pressed against my chest. For years, I have been invisible in my own family. Not a son, not a brother, just a resource. And here, from someone I barely knew, came the first acknowledgement that I had been more than that I had carried weight no one else wanted to name. I didn't cry out of sadness. I cried because, for the first time in years, someone saw me. Not my paycheck, not my silence, me. It made me realize how starved I had been for recognition, how long I had lived believing maybe I was the problem, maybe I was selfish, maybe I was ungrateful. That single email shattered the illusion my family had built around me. Lydia's words didn't erase the betrayal, but they gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that someone else saw the truth. And with that, the guilt that had haunted me every time I said no began to loosen its grip. I leaned back in my chair, breathing deeper than I had in weeks. For once, the voices of blame weren't the only voices in my head. There was another, quiet, steady, and true. And it was that shift, that small crack of light, that gave me the strength to take the next step. Because seeing myself through Lydia's eyes, I finally believed I didn't have to live under theirs anymore. Lydia's email stayed with me like a lantern in a dark room. It didn't erase the betrayal or the chaos, but it reminded me there was life beyond it. That I wasn't doomed to be the family's permanent scapegoat or walking bank account. For the first time, I started to imagine a future where I wasn't carrying their weight. So I made a decision. I packed up my apartment and moved 2 states away. No notice, no family update, no dramatic goodbye, just a clean break. I wanted distance, not just from the people who drained me, but from the version of myself who let them. The first night in my new place, a modest apartment overlooking a quiet street, I sat on the floor surrounded by unopened boxers and listened to the silence. No phone vibrating with demands, no guilt-filled messages, just silence. It felt strange at first, almost uncomfortable, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But slowly, that silence began to sound like peace. At work, the change was immediate, without the constant background stress of covering bills I didn't owe. I was sharper, more focused. My boss noticed. Within a month, I was offered a promotion I hadn't even been chasing. It felt almost unreal, like proof that my energy had finally stopped bleeding into the bottomless pit and could finally be used for me. I started doing things I'd forgotten I loved. Cooking real meals instead of grabbing whatever was cheap and fast. Reading at night instead of scrolling through transactions, waiting for the next disaster. On weekends, I'd wander the city, discovering small coffee shops, bookstores, places where no one knew my name, and no one expected a single thing from me. For the first time in years, I felt light. My shoulders weren't hunched under invisible weight, my breath wasn't tight in my chest. I was still healing, still scarred, but I was moving, forward, away, free. And yet, freedom isn't only about leaving, it's also about facing the echoes that follow you. Because as much as I tried to settle into this new life, the fallout from the old one was far from over. 3 months passed before I realized how much had changed. Rachel was still under investigation, Mark had lost his job. My parents were scrambling to keep their house afloat, clinging to the belief that I had torn the family apart, as if their hands weren't the ones holding the knife. I thought I would feel triumphant, maybe even vindicated, but instead, what I felt was clarity, because I finally understood something that had taken me nearly 3 decades to see. Blood isn't enough. Family isn't the people who share your name, it's the people who respect your boundaries, who ask instead of take, who love you whether you have a dollar or a fortune. For years, I believed saying no meant I didn't love them, that refusing was selfish, but I see it now for what it was: survival. Every time I paid their debts, every time I swallowed my anger, I wasn't protecting them, I was sacrificing myself. And love doesn't demand that. Love doesn't make you smaller so others can feel bigger. The truth is, the night I walked out of that house, I didn't lose a family. I lost an illusion, and illusions are heavy things to carry. What I found instead was something better: peace, strength, myself. Sometimes I still get messages, a bitter text from Rachel, a guilt-laden voicemail from Mom, my father's silence, sharp as ever. And every time, I remind myself, I don't owe them the version of me that suffered to keep them comfortable. That chapter is over. When people ask if I regret it, my answer is simple: I regret waiting so long. I regret the nights I couldn't sleep, wondering how I'd cover bills that weren't mine. I regret the years I starved myself of joy while they lived off my silence. But standing up, walking away? No, that I will never regret, because in the end, I didn't just redefine family, I redefined myself. And if there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away, it's this: you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away. And sometimes, when you do, you don't lose everything. You finally find who you were meant to be all along. And that was my story. A story about loss, betrayal, and the courage to finally walk away. Sometimes the hardest choice isn't leaving others behind. It's choosing yourself for the first time. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about what family truly means, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share more stories like this, stories of truth, resilience, and the strength it takes to break free.